almost there. We're on, but I'm sharing it now. The list. Got it.
Do those comments have the status of halacha? I was asking. To vote for election. I wanted to vote for the sort of the overall. Can you say it's halacha stands behind that? Is it improper to say that it's halacha that supports that idea that you vote for Torah value candidates? Is that halacha that supports that idea that you vote for Torah value candidates? Is that
what you wrote today?
What he wrote. Clarify.
There was actually he's asking about who do you vote for in elections. There was a part two that I was going to do actually for today.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it because there wasn't. I saw that the first one didn't have much interest. You know, majority of my following is from outside of Israel. So. Following is from outside of Israel. So. So it didn't have much interest. You know.
But here it would.
Here. Yeah, but I do it for 90% of my listeners are not in Israel.
Okay. So that's a lot. I mean, I know
so the answer. So I do. I'm saying I have an article on it on the subject, and the answer is that when you have two people that you can vote for, whenever you have an election with candidates, then the question that comes up is if you vote for a candidate that has policies that are contrary to Torah values, can you choose to ignore that for your personal benefits of his policies that you believe in? Or as a religious Jew, do you have to put aside your personal benefits that his policies, are going to fight for you on your behalf and vote for a different candidate because they represent Torah values more than the first one does? So it's an interesting subject because we don't really find in literature this specific discussion. There's a lot of discussion about elections, dating back 1,000 years in Torah literature. And Rishonim, this stuff, politics has been around ever since the Jewish people existed, practically, and even beforehand. But this idea of when you have a non-Orthodox or non-observant candidate versus an observant candidate, I have not found in the literature that I've gone through that I'm aware of. But so basically we have to analyze this on our own.
What was it written?
We have to analyze this I'm talking about, before our generation. We have to analyze this alone, and basically the analyzation is based on a few different Torah teachings and obligations that require a person to do all in his power to promote goodness in the world and promote Torah values, such as lifnei ivli sita michshol, put a stumbling block in front of somebody else. You can't be an accomplice to someone to transgress. Another one of those is airplane mode is a good idea. I do that. Another one of those is certain is called Messiah Ledvar Avera, a person.
I'm in a shir. Sorry.
Even when a person doesn't necessarily transgress lifnei ivli sita michshol, because there's a number of conditions that need to be met to transgress that prohibition, there are other dictums that come into place, such as Messiah Ledvar Avera. You're not allowed to assist someone in doing an avera. It's a little different than lifnei ivli. It has different rules. So a person that votes for a candidate that represents opposite Torah values, he may be transgressing Messiah Ledvar Avera. While there is room to argue and find technical loopholes to avoid all of these prohibitions, the bottom line is that at the end of the day, nothing goes more against the spirit of Torah than to vote for someone who's on a wide and public scale going to have policies that are not according to Torah. No matter how much you can be a legal scholar in Halacha and find all the loopholes, bottom line is that we're all for a good outcome. We're all for an outcome of there be greater, purity and holiness in the city and in the country. So the Rebbe's position of this was very clear. The Rebbe's position on this was, number one, every single individual has an obligation to vote and to contribute, which is not really a novelty of the Rebbe. That's already brought in previous Paiskim. The Ramah brings it. that they force everyone to come to shul and everyone to state an opinion, and whoever refuses to give an opinion, and let's say they say, well, I made a neder, I'm not stating, I'm not voting. We sit down at Bezdin and we take away his neder. We force people to vote. And, we make people vote. But on the other hand, regarding who to vote for, all the Rambam writes is you have to vote l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. Now, what does l'shem shamayim mean? So the Rabbi translated very simple, that a Jew's vote has to be for the candidate that has the greatest and highest Torah values, that he is going to progress and vouch for and be an advocate for Torah values, whether it be in a position of power or in a position of protesting against the people in power who are doing things against Torah value. But nonetheless, that is where a Jew's vote has to go. And the Rebbe was very firm on this. There's many, many letters, tens of letters to organizations and people and groups and lobby groups, that was the Rebbe's very clear position, and the Rebbe held that somebody who does not do so.
I'm not questioning what's
Let me just finish this thought. Somebody who does not do so, and they vote for someone who represents the opposite of Torah values, so he's held responsible to a certain extent, obviously not fully, but to a certain extent to all of those things that they do. And in one letter, I'll just give you a little glimpse of an example of this. Someone wrote to the Rebbe that in the previous election they voted for so-and-so, I don't know who, not the candidate that, represents and advocates for Torah policies. And they ask, and they understand that they were wrong, and they're asking the Rebbe for forgiveness. The Rebbe wrote a letter back saying, obviously what you did was wrong, but I'm not the person you have to ask mechila from. You didn't do anything personally to me. You have to ask mechila from all Klal Yisrael, as the vote for this individual was a damage to all of Klal Yisrael. That's how serious the Rebbe looked at this. So it's interesting. On the one hand, as Lubavitch in general, and the Rebbe especially, we remain apolitical. We never mention a political candidate that we vote for or that we're lining up with. At the same time, why? Because in truth, if you have two candidates who are both going to Torah values, then even if one is wearing kippah sruga and the other is wearing kippah shchora, then it's not the kippah that decides; it's the truth that decides. What are their policies? What's their level of Yireh Shamayim? What are they representing? It has nothing to do with do they put on Rashi Rabbeinu Tam? That sometimes can help the decision, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right person. So that's why we never align ourselves specifically with one person, but the idea was always to vote for the most religious, those advocating the most religious things. Yeah.
I'm not questioning what you said. I agree 100%. But still, I have a question: is that the Rebbe very often would say, for any kind of problem, doctors, medical, military, whatever, he would always say that you have to go to the professional first.
Right.
That was the criterion.
Right.
So to lead a city, to rule a city, has to do also with professionalism. It's what I think. And this guy, okay, maybe he's not 100% religious, but he has guys around him who are on our side and the side I'm not finished. So what do we do with the professionalism here? Because this is a city, for instance, if you see it go in the street, I'm not a young man, and it happened to me very often that I almost could fall, because it's like a jungle. The street is a jungle. So it has nothing to do with Torah mitzvot in one way. It has to do with that. But you know what I mean? It's a question of professionalism. It's a gossip.
You're asking a very good question, and it's that is ideally where it should be. Ideally, it should be is that every person should be able to vote for those who we believe will advocate or progress those things that we believe should be happening, and that's our right to vote. That's why we have elections, and we don't say, oh, let the smartest people in the city get together and decide who's going to be our governor. That's illegal. Even according to Torah, it's illegal. It's the people that must vote them in. If the people are stupid, so they get a stupid policymaker, but that's their decision. That's their right. So this is the novelty here, that and I agree with you, that if we didn't have any inkling of the teachings of the Rebbe on this on the subject, then we would probably fall back to the default, which be don't put religion into this. This has to do, you're right. This person is going to he's saying he's going to let stores be open on Shabbos Gayizim, but that's not the only equation. Let's put all the things on the table. Religion is important to me. It's very important to me personally, but that's not the only thing in this vote. There's many things in a vote. And therefore, I want to go with this guy. And that's really what the rest of the Haredi world does. That's why we have something extremely puzzling today, where we see here in Tzfas some, ultra-Orthodox Jews campaigning and voting for a non-religious candidate, which, just from the aspect of chinuch, I think it's so confusing for a child or even a teenager, his whole life to be brought up in a certain direction and then be told, you're supposed to vote and fight and be emotional and happy about the non-religious guy winning power in the city, not the religious guy. I think it's very confusing for a child's education. I think it's very damaging. But that's another story. So they do go by this, and that's how most of the politics here in Israel works. It really has nothing to do with necessarily religion. It has to do with who can we make deals with that will benefit us better. And that's the chiddush of the Rebbe, our Rebbe, that he came to fight against, is that no, Judaism always has to be the forefront of our decision making. Judaism has to be what will, decide, and I agree with it. In Beit Shemesh right now, what happened in Beit Shemesh was a clear example of incompetence by a city leader who happened to be ultra-Orthodox and cost him the vote in the Haredi sector. Many people didn't vote for him, and he lost because of that. But once again, together with that pain and that the upsetness of it, on the other hand, the Rebbe was very clear that we have to view it on a little bit of a higher scale. But it's a dilemma. I agree. It is a tough dilemma, and especially it allows people through politics to make deals and for the citizens to suffer just because you're from. Therefore, you have an automatic election. Why? Anyways, we're not going to fix the world overnight, but definitely that was, clearly the Rebbe's directive was to fight for the most religious candidate. Okay. We're going to discuss tonight about...
People don't know it, though. It's interesting. People just don't know it. In the conversations I had today on the very topic, people just don't know. They don't know.
There's certain things people don't know, and there's certain things people don't want to know.
Yeah.
There's different levels of knowledge. There's knowledge in the brain, and then there's knowledge that you've translated into emotion in your heart. When you feel very strongly about something, you know how to wish-wash whatever you want the other way around, That's unfortunately human nature. Okay. Mirz Hashem, tomorrow morning this will all be over. Everyone can return to normal life. Hopefully they'll learn some good lessons from all this. And we'll see what lessons are learned in another 5 years. Joining a minyan. Not joining a minyan. We're going to discuss now regarding problems involved with keeping a minyan in a shul, and what happens when you don't yet have 10 people, or you had 10 people and then they disappear. So we're going to go through the whole davening to go through it, to understand it, what should be done. So let's begin. Shachris, you're in shul. There's only 9 people in shul, so obviously you cannot say Kaddish. In order to say Davar Shebekdusha, you need to have the Shekhinah resting in the shul, which only occurs when you have 10 adult Jewish men. So, a 10th man now walks in, and you would like to know, can I say the Kaddish, the Rabbanan, that usually is said before Haidu? Can I now say it that the 10th man walked in? We are already past Haidu. So, there's a machlekes in Paiskim. If you are still before Baruch She'amar, then it's not a problem. You can go ahead and say Kaddish D'Rabbanan. It's not an issue.
You have to say Mishnah.
No, you can just say, you can say Haidu. You can say whatever you're saying out loud.
No, I mean, to say Kaddish D'Rabbanan, there must be Mishnah being said with 10, with the minyan.
Right.
If the guy arrives, you have to say Mishnah before saying Kaddish. if you're before Rosh Hashanah.
Right, so you can conclude, Chanan ibn Akasha Eimer, you can say again from the end of Rabbi Yishmael. You have different things that you can say. You have different options available. Yes, correct, you shouldn't just explode with a Kaddish, you should, say something out loud for everybody to hear. That's regarding if you're before Baal Shem. Let's say the Chazan is already past Baal Shem. The 10th man walked in. So then we have a machlekes. According to the Mekubalim, the entire davening is a ladder. And once you've already said Baruch Sha'amar, you pass the stage of Kaddish the Rabbanim. So you can't make it up anymore. Some places can hold that no, you can still do it. You can still say it, even in middle. Tachlis, this is a machlekes. But in the case that you have a chiyuv, somebody who's, a chiyuv for a father, for a mother, in that situation, he can go ahead and say the Kaddish, even if he's in the middle of Baruch Shama. Meaning, even though after Baruch Shama, you're not allowed to make a hefsek anymore, you're not allowed to talk. Even for the sake of a mitzvah, it's forbidden to talk after Baruch Shama. Nonetheless, we give him a special pass, as he's doing it for the honor of his mother and father. It's a mitzvah kibbut avei, it's a mitzvah deraisa, even after death. Fortunately, some people only keep it after death. It's a mitzvah deraisa after death. And so because of this mitzvah deraisa, we allow him to say Kaddish Yasam, only if he's a Yasam for father and mother, not if somebody saying it b'schar, saying it as payment. Father and mother, since he's a chiyuv of kibbut avei, he can go ahead and he can say a Kaddish once the 10th man walks in, even though he's past Baal Shem. Let's continue. You still don't have a minyan. Or your 10th man came and he left. You're now by Yishtabach, near Yishtabach. What do? What's the Seder? So this happens a lot in different minyanim, and I've seen, unfortunately, these halachas are very clearly written, and there shouldn't be much confusion other than not learning them. And it's very clear what has to be done. In the situation that there aren't 10 people around before Yishtabach, and you plan on waiting, I'm not talking about that you plan on davening privately, you plan on waiting for the 10th man to come. And the following is the Seder. The congregants are to go ahead already and finish Az Yashir, Shem Yimleich, and then go ahead and say Yishtabach, and say the blessing Yishtabach, and stop. Wait for the 10th man to arrive. However, the Chazan is a little different. The Chazan, Halacha is, this is the Ramah, chapter 53, he's supposed to wait before Yishtabach. What's the reason? Magen Avraham writes that a person, whenever a person davens, he has to try to approximate the concluding blessing of Pesukei de Zimra with Pesukei de Zimra. So if a person were to finish Az Yashir and then take a break, it's a problem. Because it's meant to be a sandwich. It's like eating the hamburger and bread separately. It's strange, I think, right? So it's supposed to be together. That's what is a chiyuv to approximate the two. And that's why, even outside of the scenario I just mentioned, a person should always know, whenever you're davening, if you need to take a break somewhere, you want to think some chassidus, not there. Finish those yashir, go straight to Yishtabach. After Yishtabach, you can think all you want. Don't take your break in between.
Yishtabach ends right before Baruch.
Correct.
Okay.
So between Yishtabach and Baruch, that's where you can take your break.
You stop before you say Yishtabach, you say all the way up to where?
After. Well, let's get our siddur.
After. I thought I understood, but is that right?
Let's get our siddur.
The story of the sandwich.
Okay, so person finished Az Yashir, they should right away begin Yishtabach. In all scenarios, forget about our case. In all cases, whenever you're davening, the Magen Avraham rules, you always have to approximate the two. So you should go straight to Yishtabach and finish the bracha.
If the chazan is behind you,
Doesn't matter where the chazan is.
Yishtabach all the way to right there.
you don't stop 3 psukim before and wait for the chazan if he's a little bit before you?
So if you didn't finish as yashir, then you don't enter into this obligation because you still have some meat left. So you still are having a sandwich. Not a very tasty one, not a lot of meat, but a little bit. So the halacha of the Magen Avraham doesn't really kick in fully, but there's no need to do that. There's no need to wait over here for the chazan. There's no concept of saying yishtabach with the minyan. There's no such thing. There's certain things have to be done with a minyan. Yishtabach is not one of them. It's our minhag that we say psukkah de zimra altogether, but it's not the chiyuv of the minyan. So a person should just go right ahead. There's no need to wait 3 psukim before. When is it customary to wait and avoid this, circumvent this issue is on Shabbos and Yantif. Shabbos and Yantif, right, we have a little more after Nishmas. We finish saying Nishmas. And then we have Sheikhinat, Makeles, Rivbeis, Salfis. So all that, people like waiting with the minyan and they want to do it with Chazanis. So what do you know of that situation? Well, what is this?
Not there yet.
Yeah. So how do we avoid the issue I just said? Once you finish Sukkot, you have to go straight to your stomach. So here, you wait over here. You wait by, somewhere over here, Hamelech or wherever. And this is also part of Sukkot Zimra. This is Tishbachas. You're praising God. So this is part of Sukkot Zimra. So only if you went ahead and you found yourself up by Uvechain, then the Magen Avram's halacha would kick in, step on the gas, finish it, and wait here. But so long as you haven't done that and you've waited here, you're okay. And that's what's done on Shabbos. But by the way, during the week, there's no need to do that. You can just go ahead and finish your stuff. This is so the first chiddush here is that the congregation always has an obligation to approximate the two. The chazan, however, ideally has this obligation as well, and when you have a minyan, that's what should be done. The chazan, if he wants to wait for people to catch up, for example, he should not choose before Yishtabach to do that. He should choose somewhere else. Don't finish as Yashir yet. Take a stroll before you say the final phrases of as Yashir. Don't finish as Yashir and then wait and start Yishtabach when there's a minyan ready. However, when there is no minyan, there's no minyan available, then the halacha is he should wait until a minyan comes. And I'll explain why. The Chetzi Kaddish, which is said between Yishtabach and Yitzhar, can only be said if Sukkot Zimra was said beforehand in a quorum of 10 people. So because of that, if you're going to go ahead now and say Yishtabach, and you don't have 10 people, how are you going to start Kaddish afterwards? You didn't have 10 people by Sukkot Zimra, so you can't say the Chetzi Kaddish. So you lose the Chetzi Kaddish. So because of that, we have to override the halacha of the Magen Avraham and tell the chazan to wait. And that's the halacha. He has to wait before Yishtabach. When the 10th man comes, he says Yishtabach, immediately afterwards Kaddish. In the event that he didn't do this, didn't know, whatever. Sometimes this happens, by the way, where the chazan, the person who's chazan Sukkot Zimra, not interested in continuing. He was just doing it to get things moving, to warm up the crowd. And he's done. He's off the flight. Someone else has to take him over. So all the other people already did our halacha of the Magen Avraham. They already finished. They're holding by Yishtabach. What do you do in such a case? So in such a case, you should say a few psukim. Say a few psukim from Sukkot Zimra. Say 3 psukim and then go ahead and say Kaddish. But you have to say something.
Restate the rule. They have to have 10. Yeah, they have 10 where in order to go forward and say...
in order to say Chetzi Kaddish, you have to have 10 by some part of Sukkot Zimra.
Oh, okay.
Right before Yishtabach.
So if you
Right before Kaddish.
Oh, in the Yishtabach counts as that? If they jump
Yes,
in?
it does. Yishtabach is also praised. Sure.
Inside of Yishtabach.
So if by Yishtabach you have 10 people, you then have the right to go ahead and continue with Kaddish.
So if you just, certain scenario, you had 9 and you just wait. You wait even in the last 2 or 3 lines before the end of Yishtabach. You just wait until you get the 10th.
The chazan waits.
Yeah, the chazan would wait.
Chazan waits before he begins Yishtabach. Before he begins Yishtabach.
Why would? I thought you said as long as it was 10 total at some point up to and including within Yishtabach.
I understand, but the halacha is he doesn't begin Yishtabach, he waits for the 10th man to come. When the 10th man comes, he then begins Yishtabach and goes ahead with. But this idea,
He should be Yishtabach, or he should be like 3 psukim before he stops.
no, he can be by Yishtabach. That's
Doesn't
what's written. He doesn't have to. It's interesting because they could have just said, the Ramah could have written that the person at the Chazan should wait 3 psukim beforehand. No, they don't. They're right that he should wait before Yishtabach, and in such a case it's allowed because he needs it for the Kaddish. Okay.
But what they do in Kronites, they wait always before the end of Yashir. They don't say the last
Psukim.
Psukim, as he said. That's the way it works. I remember in shuls in Kronites, we didn't have minyan. We would wait. The Chazan would just stop
Yeah. Well,
at the end, not at the very end, but before the end. Of
so
the
if you do so, then you gain both sides. You gain the Magen Avram sandwich, and you gain the Kaddish. So yeah, but that's not what's written. What's written is it could be maybe the case is talking about that you're already finished. I'm not sure why they don't give that eitzah to just wait a few psukim beforehand, which is, as I said, that's what we do every Shabbos. Every Shabbos the Chazan finishes, and then someone takes him over from a few psukim before. But okay, so that's regarding that. So in other words, this is what we see in a lot of shuls where they wait for the Chazan to begin Yishtabach, and everybody begins Yishtabach in unison. It's not good, because if you've already finished, as Yasha, you have to continue. Okay, that's our first part. You got your 10th man for your Yishtabach, you said Kaddish, the guy got a phone call and he leaves. You haven't yet said Baruch.
Haven't said Baruch.
Nope. So the halacha is like this. Once you start the Davar Shebekadusha, the Gemara Yerushalmi brings, it's according to Shulchan Aruch, chapter Nun-Hey, chapter 55. Once you begin a Davar Shebekadusha, you can continue it and finish it. So if you began saying Kaddish, even the first word, let's say, and you had a minyan, and then someone abruptly leaves the minyan, so you have 9, you can still finish Kaddish, and everyone can answer Minei Rabbi, etc. In other words, it's this like, once the Shechina comes, and you already started Davar Shebekadusha, he's not disappearing with the guy that leaves. He's staying. He already came.
The Rishima.
Or Rishima. But Baruch Hu, in this situation where the guy left right after Kaddish, Chetzi Kaddish, Baruch Hu is it's a new Davar Shebekadusha. It's not a continuation of Kaddish. It's something new. It's independent. So, in that situation, you would not be able to say Baruch Hu. You lose the Baruch Hu. If you don't have 10 people in Baruch Hu.
If the person leaves
During Kaddish.
before the person says Kaddish, and the person already started saying Kaddish,
He left before Kaddish,
he left just before Kaddish, and the person who was davening from the oven didn't notice it.
it's a problem.
You stop him from saying Kaddish in the
So
middle?
some places can hold that, bottom line is that yes, you do have to stop him. The Noda B'Yehuda has a famous psak, we once mentioned it in one of our shiurim, that you don't really need a minyan. It's a very funny, it's a very revolutionary or uncommon ruling that a minyan is only the chiyuv. So, but yeah, but if you already started without a minyan, you can continue. It's a psak of the Noda B'Yehuda. Practically, we don't rule this way. It's contrary to the simple implication of all the poskim. And therefore, yes, you would have to stop. The person would have to be told to stop. You don't have a minyan. And if he says, but I started with him, and you tell him, no, you didn't. He left before you started Kaddish.
And if you
Let's
left
move
in the
on.
middle, and if you left in mid-Kaddish,
Then he continues Kaddish.
mid-Kaddish, you left mid-Kaddish, the 10th walks out.
So that once you started, God's staying.
God's what?
The Shekhinah,
Oh,
Staying.
God's staying.
he's going to stay. You think he's going to leave with this guy? This guy who left is considered Oizvei Hashem. God's going to leave with him.
He may have a good reason to leave.
Yeah, but that's true.
We're going to get to the place where we deal with this issue that there's one certain Kaddish that can be said after Shemona Esrei.
We're working our way.
We're going to get there, right?
We're working our
It's
way
only-
through davening. Birchas Krishma and Krishma. Okay, you're in Birchas Krishma. You don't really need a minyan there. Okay, the custom is that we all say to ourselves. So there really is no requirement of a minyan by Birchas Krishma and Krishma. The only time that you need a minyan, the next step of needing a minyan, is only by Shemona Esrei. But during the whole Birchas Kriyashma, once you finish Baruch Hu and Kaddish, you don't really need a minyan. It used to be that you did. Why? It was a concept that today we don't do anymore. It's extinct, called Peirus al Shema. It's a whole Siman Shulchan Aruch, Siman Samach Tes that discusses the laws of it. It used to be that people were not as learned, not as educated or literate, and they didn't know how to open a siddur and read. So they would come to shul, hear the chazan do the job, and be yotze. Now Shema is deraisa. Shema is a biblical requirement if it's being done on time before Seis and Kriyashma. So the chazan would go up, be peres al Shema, and be mitzi the congregation.
How come?
What do you mean how come?
It's an obligation. It's a biblical obligation. How could you be not see?
Shemea ka'ina. Shemea ka'ina. One who hears is like one who listens. It's not just by hearing shofar that we apply that.
One who hears as if he did it.
One who hears is if he said it.
He has to
As if he
hear
said
it
it.
well.
Absolutely, he must pay attention. He has to do the whole
It's like
thing.
it's loud question. That's what the Sephardim do.
That what?
The Sephardim do that. One is saying loud, and for the people who doesn't know how to read.
Daven in many Sephardi shuls, everybody davens. No one.
I don't know. I mean,
They don't even pay
Paris and
attention.
places
They don't
like
even
that.
pay attention to the chazan where I go.
No,
They're on the
not
road.
here, but in Paris and
Yeah.
places like that, they would do it loud for the people who couldn't read, couldn't know how to read.
I mean, no, everywhere the chazan says out loud. Are you saying they read the whole Shema?
No,
Everywhere?
Shema.
No, no.
Very loud.
Right.
And it's
So that was the
still doing
original custom. It could be, I don't daven by Yemenites. It could be Yemenites do this till this day. I'm sure maybe in old Persian shuls they do this, in Iran. Yeah, I just don't know. But this definitely was the custom. This is what was done. So for that, you must have a minyan. You didn't have a minyan, you're not yetzi.
You need to be
But there too, if you started off with a minyan, if you started Birchas Kriyashma with a minyan, then you can continue. Meaning once the Shekhinah came, it doesn't leave till you finished, finish that Kedusha. Okay, Shemana Esrei. The definition of Tefillah B'tzibah is that you have at least 6 people davening Shemana Esrei together in a quorum of 10. Meaning there's 10 people there, 10 Jews above our mitzvah, and 6 of those Jews are davening Shemana Esrei together. That's the definition of Tefillah B'tzibah, of davening with a minyan. Everything else is icing on top. But this is the mitzvah of a minyan. So obviously, if you want to have the mitzvah of a minyan, you need to get yourself a 10th man to be in the room while you daven Shemana Esrei. If you don't have a 10th man, let's say you only had 9, then if you get a 10th man afterwards, let's say it happened, you didn't notice. There wasn't a minyan at the time that you daven Shemana Esrei. Now oh my gosh, well the 10th guy left, nobody noticed. And we didn't even daven with a minyan together. That doesn't mean everything fell apart. Since 6 people daven together, you still have the chiyuv of chazaras hashatz. It's a very funny combination because you didn't daven with a minyan. You didn't have 10 people there. The Shekhinah wasn't around. But since 6 people daven together, therefore, you have the obligation of chazaras hashatz if a 10th man now comes. So if a 10th man now comes, this is, by the way, machlekes and poskim, but this is the way we follow, that even 9 alone still go ahead and do chazaras hashatz. A 10th man now comes in, or you get a 10th man to come inside for chazaras hashatz. You do a regular chazaras hashatz, you continue davening as normal. It doesn't retroactively make it that you daven Shemana Esrei with a minyan. You didn't. That will never change. But the continuity of the davening is the same.
As long as you have 9 to answer.
Yeah, of course. Those rules always remain. Those rules never change. Shemana Esrei. Chazaras hashatz. If you started off 10, if you had 10 people for davening Shemana Esrei, b'lachash silently, and by the time you're done, one guy is not there, or one guy's in the middle of Shemana Esrei, then the halacha is that you must have a minyan to begin chazaras hashatz. You need to have 9 people answering. We discussed this last week. So you have to wait, and you cannot start until you get that 10th man. We got the 10th man, or let's say we have 10 answerers, and as soon as we finish Kedusha or even started Shemana Esrei, one guy started with us, and he's no longer an answerer. We didn't know he was holding before Shemana Esrei, and he began with the chazan. So now we're back again. It's as if we don't have a minyan.
Right. have the 9. We don't have the 9 answers.
We don't have the 9 answers, correct?
Yeah. So how many-
Or simply the 10th man left. This happens sometimes where you don't have a minion and you're literally borrowing people off the street. So the guy's not going to stay for the whole thing. He stays till Kedusha and he leaves. So that's not okay on him. It's not okay on him to leave. At the same time, what's the halacha for you for this now 9/10 of a minion? So use the same rule we brought from the Yerushalmi and Mitzvot and halacha. Once you started Av Shel Kedusha, you can continue. Since the Chazan began Chazaras Hashatz, he had the license to do so, he had the mandate to do so, was halacha correct, he had a minion at the time. He's allowed to continue and finish the whole Chazaras Hashatz. However, if you're in a minion that does Nasias Kapayim, that does Duchanim, the Kayanim, you can't do that. Because that is independent of the Kedusha of Chazaras Hashatz. So a Chazar Hashatz you can finish, that you can't do. And by the way, in all these cases that we say you're allowed to continue with the matter and finish it, it's only if you remain with 6 in the room. It's not only if 1 leaves, even if 2 leaves, even if 3 leaves. Even if 4 leaves, that's pretty bad.
You continue still, so you have...
If 5 people left, you're left with 5 people in the room, then God is with them as well.
After the Kedusha.
If 5 people got up and left.
4 people leaves after the Kedusha, you continue.
Even before the Kedusha. Once you start the word.
Even before the Kedusha.
Once you begin the words of Chazaras Hashatz. Baruch Ata Hashem.
The guy leaves.
5 people said, I heard him say Birich and not Baruch. I don't believe in these Hasidic guys. They don't know how to speak. 5 people got up and they protested and left the shul. You have 5 people left now.
So
You're done. You can't do anything. But if only 4 people,
You continue.
you continue.
So you stop. So in that case, the Chazan, who's in repetition mode already, he's going to stop. Basically, if he knows that 5 people, if it's known that there's 5 people that have gone, and
5 people have gone. He's just got to stop. God left. He's not there anymore. Who are you talking to?
but the answer is less than that. We don't need the 9 answers. If people go, if it started out with a full 9 answers, and 1 leaves even, you still go, even though there's only 8 answers. You still go forward.
And what about Tfilat Nedava?
You know such thing as Chetzi Nedava. Tfilas Nedava is only to begin with you did it Nedava. So yeah, if you make, as the Mishnah Berurah and Bir Halacha suggests, that every Chazan should make a Tanai before he starts davening, that in case I have 9 sleepers, not 9 answers, then or 9 talkers instead of 9 answers, then my davening is now being a Nedava. In that situation, you'll be covered, that you'll be able to then switch to that Nedava as soon as the 5 people have left you by yourself, as soon as they left the minion. And you can continue and finish it off silently. It's no longer Chazaras Hashatz.
The other day we had a situation, we were 10, just 10, the Chazan was going to start Chazaras Hashatz, but one of the 10 was in the middle of Kriyat Shema, of the Brachos of Kriyat Shema.
Right, so he doesn't count as one of the 10.
Doesn't
What do you
count.
do?
I went to the street again to someone.
You did the right thing. That's the only way to do it. Yeah.
And what is it? Go back to the first case you started talking about, where you got somebody who's gone into, they were there, and they were 9 who could answer, but we lost them because they were before Shemon Esrei, and they went into Shemon Esrei.
We now don't have 9 answers.
Right. So what do you do then?
You just continue.
Okay, because that's even. I mean,
If even when one guy gets up and leaves,
Okay,
we just
so how much
continue.
more?
Certainly, in this case, we just continue. But there's still the Shekhinah's here. We have 10 people.
Yeah.
This isn't an issue with the Shekhinah anymore. It's an issue with the technicality of Chazaras Hashatz. So we don't have 9 answers.
So with Chatchila, if you're looking around the room, I'm looking around the room quite often in Methodola to see that there are 9, and I don't know all the time who has started and who hasn't. I'm sometimes relying on some of them who haven't started. If I know up front that they haven't started yet, it's still okay to say.
So the truth is, some Paiskim hold that when someone davens with the Chazan, they're like one of the 9 answers.
Yeah, I heard that.
But davening with the chazan doesn't mean word for word all the way through?
That's usually what they do when they daven with the Chazan, because once you start with the Chazan, you have to worry about saying Maidim with him, and then Kedusha with him, Maidim with him, Shemayat Tefillah with him. So because of this, usually you daven with the Chazan.
Right. So even going in knowing that there's going to a few people that are going to, even however many, are going to go into that's 4 or less, that have not davened Shemona Esrei yet, but they started out, available to say the first of May or whatever, and then
There's no such thing as they're available because they're by Berachas Kriyashma. Where are they?
No, they're,
Oh, Mincha.
yeah, 9 people in the room.
And you don't know that somebody hasn't davened yet.
And you see that there's maybe somebody, you already up front know that you're counting on some people haven't gone to Shemona Esrei yet. They're just before Shemona Esrei. And they're waiting specifically, maybe they can hear Kedusha, but then they're gonna go into Shemona Esrei, they're not gonna be able to answer.
So as I say, some places can hold that you can rely on them, going ahead and davening with you.
Okay.
But the best thing is to have literally 9 answers, as the Algebra writes.
All time, sure.
It's not so simple that they really count. Okay, so we got through our Shemona Esrei. We still don't have a minyan. I mean, the minyan left in middle, so I finished. No chazar, no Nesiyas Kapayim, so the Kainim don't get the benches this day. Now what's the order? So in a day that we say Tachanan, you say Tachanan. Tachanan is not dependent on a minyan, but what is dependent on a minyan is Hashem Hashem. Yigimel Midas. Yigimel Midas you cannot say. Yigimel Midas is an independent idea of the Kedusha that you started by Chazaras Hashatz. Nothing to do with it. So therefore, you cannot say Hashem Hashem at this time.
You need 10 people, actually.
You need 10 people. It's not only that you need 10. Yigimel Midas is so strict, it's not even enough to have 10 people in the room. You need to have 10 people in unison saying it together.
The 10 people have to
10
say,
people
not
saying
6 out of 10.
10 people saying it together, yeah.
Wow.
So it's a chiyuv. It's a chiyuv. Whenever you hear Hashem Hashem, you have to say it with them.
I know this sounds
So
overly.
but you
so
can't-
davening by Sfardim, they say Hashem Hashem Mondays and Thursdays like 5-6 times.
Yeah.
You can't just say, well, I'm doing my thing, and they do their thing. You have to try.
Have to do.
If you're one of 10.
So, but what of the?
Even if you're not one of 10.
Yeah, it's still,
You have to
yeah.
join to answer.
But Kedusha,
But you
you
can't-
need 6 out of 10.
Hmm?
For the Kedusha, you need only 6 out of 10.
Kedusha is something else. Kedusha is not
So
Hashem
this
Hashem.
is-
You give them midas.
That's the highest,
The highest of the high, yeah.
Hashem Hashem is Yigimel.
So, but you can't say Hashem Hashem if you're in the middle of Zukit Zimra.
No, that's true. That's true. And Kedusha
So you
do.
don't count.
Yes,
Kadush you do,
correct.
but Hashem Hashem you
Not
don't.
Yigimel midas, yeah.
Shemona Esrei, Shemona Esrei.
And you don't answer.
You ignore it.
Of course, if even in Sukkot Zimmer you ignore, certainly it's
Oh,
necessary.
you said you ignore it.
Kaddish.
And you also don't say it with, you don't say Amen to Birkas Kohanim if you're in Zukit Zimra.
Are you
It's
referring
not
to
bracha.
the
The real one
Kain or
or the-
referring to Elokeinu? What do you mean by Berachas Kain?
Yeah, the royal one. you say
Elokeinu
it's-
by the Chazan or actual Kainim by the Duchan?
Good question.
Or what are you referring to?
My first,
Chazan, no, you
it's a
don't
good
say.
question either way, so I don't,
The Chazan we don't answer to. He's
Right.
just
The Kohanim you
doing,
answer.
he's doing a make-believe. He's doing a correspondence to, a memorial to Berachas Kainim. He's not doing Berachas Kainim. But a Kayin who's blessing us, he's doing a mitzvah deraisa. So in that situation, even in
Say
Birchas Kriyashma, you're supposed to say Amen.
even if you're Birkas
Even Birchas Kriyashma, and even to the Bracha, according to the Alter Rebbe, you answer Amen. In fact, even in Chazaras Hashatz, the way we rule is, even though there's a big balagan in the Paiskim about this, the Chazan, the Chazaras Hashatz, when he's reading off to the Kayanim, he answers Amen. The Kayanim say the Bracha, he answers Amen. He's answering in the middle of Shemona Esrei. He's allowed to answer Amen. Plus, he answers Amen, just like with everybody else. Because of this, with Moshe and other Paiskim write that if you started with the Chazan, let's say, I said before, of a case scenario, people wait for the Chazan and then they start Shemona Esrei with him. So if you're with the Chazan and you're with him by Birchas Kainim, you should also answer Amen. In the middle of your private Shemona Esrei, it's not Chazaras Hashatz for you. You go ahead and you answer Amen in Birchas Kainim.
But you wouldn't do if it was a private Shemona Esrei.
Well, no, it is a private Shemona Esrei. What do you mean?
Because even a
with the
private
Chazan.
Shemona Esrei, you wouldn't, your own private Shemona Esrei, you wouldn't answer Amen to Birkas Kohanim.
He isn't his own private
But
Shemona
he's
Esrei.
with
No,
the
but
Chazan. He's with
the Chazan, yes.
That's how it happens. How else would it happen? How would it happen? You're in your own private Shemona Esrei,
Yeah.
and and Birchas Kainim is taking place. It's because you're with the Chazan.
You have to
Well,
be, you have to be with the
Chazan.
Chazan.
But you're saying if you didn't start with him, let's say you just began now, you're in the middle of the first bracha. Is that
I'm in the middle of the first bracha, and he's wherever he is.
So in that situation, well, according to Halacha, you're not really allowed to do that. You have to wait to start Shemona Esrei until after Moedim. You have to wait until, a certain part. Then after Kaddish, it's like you have to wait a while to start Shemona Esrei. So it's a little, it's a case that's not a chatchil according to halacha. If a person didn't begin Shemona Esrei together with the chazan in time to finish Shemona Esrei before Shema Kileinu, then the halacha is that he has to wait until all the kadeshim are set. And I have a minyan adabanim that sometimes, quite often that happens. They go very quick by Shachris, and because of that, I'm going slower. I'm up to Shemona Esrei. They're already at the end of Chazaras Hashatz or by Tachanun. I wait until everything's done. It doesn't take
Finish
that long.
Aleinu.
Don't worry, it doesn't take them that long.
You finish Aleinu.
Yeah, they finish all their kadeshim, and then I begin Shemona Esrei when they're practically there's nobody left in shul.
That's when you're 10? That's when you're if you were the 15th, would it matter?
What do you mean?
No matter what.
There is a minyan already.
No, there's a minyan. They're not dependent on me for a
Doesn't,
minyan.
Okay.
And what about mincha and shkia?
So, but in the event that case happened, and someone had they started Shemona Esrei, then no. Then in that case, you don't answer in the wrong place. It's only by avoida that you would answer, just like the chazan.
And what about mincha with the shkia if you don't wait for the
Correct.
chazan?
So also say Siman Tefillah. You don't have to run to mincha. Shachris as well. Say Siman Tefillah. You don't have to worry about the chazan. Do your thing. Go ahead. Yeah. So in those situations, then you wouldn't unless you're in the right spot. Let's move on. So Tachanun, we said you have to skip Hashem Hashem. What about Kaddish after Tachanun? Because the Kaddish.
Say it is connected to his
So
Meister.
in chapter Nun Hey, which is the source of all these halachas of minyan and someone left in the middle, what do you do? The Mechaber doesn't address the situation. He says that you finish the Chazaras Hashatz, but he doesn't address what happens with the Kadeshim, what happens with everything else. The Ramah does, and the Ramah rules that a person should finish until after the Kaddish of the Skabel of after Valitzin. Now, it's unclear if the Ramah here is giving a new opinion that the Mechaber doesn't hold up, or if he's just, filling in the blanks of what the Mechaber left out, but everyone agrees to this.
You need 6.
Yeah, you always need 6. I said before, you always need to have 6. You always have to have a minimum of Rav Minyan. Bottom line is like this. Majority of the Sephardi Paiskim will rule that according to the Mechaber, Kaddish is a new thing. So by a Sephardi Minyan, if they lost the 10th man during Chazaras Hashatz, it's done, it's over. There's nothing else to do. Finish Sim Shalem, go home. Do it on your own. There's nothing that can be done. The Ramah, however, clearly, we just said, we continue. However, the question is, which, by the way, very interestingly, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch here rules like the Sephardim. He doesn't rule like the Ramah. If you learn Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, you'll read, you finish Shemona Esrei, go home. Nothing to do.
Without a minyan.
No more minyan, there's nothing else you can do. We don't rule like the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch in this, we rule like the Ramah. That you can go ahead and you continue until the Kaddish after Volitzin. So while for sure you can say Volitzin with the minyan, and say the Kaddish afterwards, the full Kaddish Shalom with this Kabbalah, what about that Chetzi Kaddish? The Ramah doesn't say.
Which one is that?
The Chetzi Kaddish right
Skabel,
after.
you can say without.
After
Skabel, you can say
Tachanun.
with 9, you're saying. 9 or less. 9 or less.
6.
With 6. Down to 6, you can say Skabel. The Chetzi Kaddish that's after the day.
So this you can say, even though you only have 6 people left in the room, you could say this.
The Skabel, right?
Yeah, that's Kaddish Skabel. But the half Kaddish that follows Tachanun, what about this? So the Alter Rebbe, when he brings this halacha, he does something funny. He, on the one hand, explains that the whole reason why you can say Teskabel is because Teskabel Tzleisen is going on the davening of Shemona Esrei. You're asking Hashem accept our prayers, which is Chazaras Hashatz, or Shemona Esrei of Lachash. So being that you said Teskabel, since it's connected to the Kedusha you already started and had the right to finish, you have the right to finish this as well. That would seem to exclude the half Kaddish that's said after Tachanun, because that has nothing to do with the Shemona Esrei. On the other hand, when the Alter Rebbe begins explaining to us why you can't say the Kaddish after Aleinu, he says the reason why you can't say the Kaddish Yosem after Aleinu, because it's just a minhag. It's not something that was set in stone. It's just a minhag, so you can't. So it seems like that everything that's chiyuv, that's an obligation, as part of the order of davening, you can go ahead and say, meaning you would be allowed to say that Chetzi Kaddish, Tachanun, no Yigimel Midas, Chetzi Kaddish, Volitzin, Ashrei Volitzin, Kaddish Shalom, and then it's over. And that's what the Mishnah Berurah rules. The Mishnah Berurah Taka rules that you can go ahead and say the Chetzi Kaddish. Many others argue on him. Many places can say you cannot say it. And you just go straight to Valitzian, to Ashrin of Valitzian, and you don't say Chetzi Kaddish after Tachanan. But practically, you may do so. That's what should be followed, like the Mishnah Berurah. You go ahead, you say Chetzi Kaddish, you then go ahead and say Ashrin Valitzian, and say Kaddish Shon. And after that, everyone is in agreement. Sephardim and Ashkenazim, there's nothing else you can do. There's nothing else you can make up. The minyan's over.
Would people stay in Daven like Eleno and stuff?
You can say, but there's no minyan, there's nothing else. There's no Kaddish Yosem. Now, what about Mincha? By Mincha, it works like this. If you started Chazaras Hashatz of Mincha with a minyan, the minyan left, and you can go ahead and finish Chazaras Hashatz of Mincha and say the Kaddish Shalom after Mincha, just like we said by Shachris.
After Tachanan? Yeah.
Yeah, if Tachanan is said, if Tachanan is not said, whatever the case.
Okay.
Tachanan here doesn't make a difference. There's no extra Kaddish here by Mincha. But every other Kaddish you cannot say. Now what about Ma'ariv?
Every other, so the one after you can't, you don't say Eleno and you don't say.
You say Elena, you don't say Kaddish.
You don't say the Kaddish after, okay.
Now by Ma'ariv, it's like this. So if you started Birchas Kriya Shema with a minyan, then you can go ahead and say the Kaddish before Shema Esrei, even if you no longer have a minyan. It's all considered one Kedusha.
Okay.
You can say before Shemona Esrei.
Yeah. Half Kaddish we say before Shema Esrei, you can go ahead and finish.
Down to 6, as long as you have 6.
As long as you have 6 left. However, if you had 10 for Shemona Esrei, and then by the end of Shemona Esrei you no longer have 10, the minyan's over. You can't say that Kaddish because
Unlike Shabbos,
it's a
the minyan,
different.
you can't.
Because it wasn't. You didn't have Chazaras Hashatz. There was no Chazaras Hashatz here. You didn't have a connector. You understand?
Speaking of the connector.
So even though it's Tiskabel, it's not.
It's closer to Shemona Esrei. Why is this? I mean, the half Kaddish
Yeah.
is
We
closer
said
to
you can
Shemona
say.
Esrei.
We said in the bottom line, you can say that.
Shabbos.
Yes.
But at first you said it wasn't, though. You counted it out at
Yeah,
first.
we deliberated. I said it's a machlekes and paiskim, and we concluded that you can say.
Why was the other one more certain, the one after Ubalatzion?
Because it has the words Tiskabel Tzleisim, which is going on Shemona Esrei.
Oh, it has the words.
Is it because the Kriyas Shema is biblical? The Shemona Esrei is not in the Ma'ariv, it's a Reshut, it's Tfilat Reshut. Therefore,
That's the
the...
reason. We could bring here. Let's see the Lashon. Conclude with this.
Turn the camera around this way, because I'm not sure there's a microphone on this side. There's for sure a microphone on this side. So I kind of think there's a microphone on both sides, but I'm not sure.
How many people are watching?
Yeah. Keinem yatsu b'ktsas nach shetchil yitzer v'yatchil shlichsu v'spal tfilu b'kolram shetfilu shitchas v'kedusha ein lehem inyanim kaddish v'baruch chen ki yitzu zera so do by mine le'yema hakadosh after shlichas. If the minyan left before kaddish, then you don't say the kaddish after Shemona Esrei. En kan yasar b'tchis tfilu shitchas le'em shal yasar b'shas kriya shema b'chisa v'al kaddish afnei tfilu shitchas yem shal yasar b'tchis. One second. And gives the Arvis, Leimar Kadashach Tfilas Yichas, and Kanyasar B'tchis Tfilas Yichas. Okay, correction, like this. I'll tell you here rules like this. What we said, the first part of it's correct, that the Kaddish that's before Shemona Esrei, if you had 10 by Birchas Kriya Shema, you can continue. But you can't say the Kaddish after Shemona Esrei. But if you had 10 during Tfilas Lachash, during the Lachash, and the Alter Rebbe here rules, when can you not say the Kaddish after Shemona Esrei of Ma'ariv if you did not have 10 during the beginning of Shemona Esrei? If you had 10 in the beginning of Shemini Esrei then you can continue. So again, correction, if you have 10 by the, I'm not sure this is by all opinions, but certainly this is what the Alter here writes. If you have 10 for the Lachash, you can say the Kaddish afterwards, even though there was no Chazaras Hashatz here involved.
What's Lakash again? I missed
The
it.
private, the
The
quiet
Shmoneh Esrei.
Oh, Lakash.
the only Shemini Esrei by my, Okay.
Interesting.
Not the whole thing, it's one, somebody left in the beginning, you had the 10, but they left in the middle. Somebody
In
left
the beginning, you start
Start
Shemini
with
Esrei with 10
10
people.
quiet people down
In other words, we are, but don't get confused, by Mincha and Shachas, we're not going to say this. By Mincha and Shachas, we had 10 for Lachash, but you can't start Chazaras Hashatz, and you can't do anything.
If one
You have to
walked
have
out,
10.
You didn't.
If you don't have 10 by the time you start Chazaras Hashatz, you can't start Chazaras Hashatz. We don't say, oh, go off the fact that you had a minyan by the private Shemini Esrei, by the silent Shemini Esrei. But by Ma'ariv, we are applying that.
And if you don't say Chazat Hashatz in the morning, you start with 10, then you can say Chazat Hashatz because you don't have 10 anymore. You cannot say Kaddish after.
So I didn't get that, say it again?
You start with 10,
Yeah.
and someone leaves, and you cannot do Chazat Hashatz. So what about the Kaddish after Trachanun?
if you get another
Right,
one back.
so it sounds like you can't say, because that whole
Same
thing.
situation as
Relationship thing.
Ma'ariv.
I understand, you're comparing to Ma'ariv. I feel it's the Birchas others we call God, it's awesome. Yeah, here the Lashon is that the Alter here writes that we're only continuing the Kaddish afterwards because of the Chazaras Hashatz. Yeah.
Text me. Okay.
That's the implication here is that you have to have 10 by Chazaras Hashatz itself. I can look more into it, but that's a simple implication here.
Because this happens a lot. You don't
Yeah.
say Chazat Hashatz, someone left, and what do? You do Kaddish or you don't do Kaddish?
He's saying left before Chazaras Hashatz, so that
Yeah.
you lost the whole meaning, right?
Yeah, before.
Yeah, here the wording is, and Alter writes that you can then continue with the Kaddish after Shemini Esrei. It's referring to that they started Chazaras Hashatz with him.
We're talking Ma'ariv now.
No.
No.
Shachos and Mincha.
Oh,
If you start Chazar Tashatz with a minyan.
oh, we started looking at it.
Right. Okay, that's it, guys. That's it for today.
Kaya.
Spread the good word. Everybody should know this, so there doesn't have to be confusion in the minyan.
Yeah, confusion on non.
In the minyan, Kasha.
Oops.
We had a victory the other day with this other issue that somebody was